Hello, welcome to another featured author chat here on Instagram. This is part of my 2021 Summer Reading Challenge. So I'm so glad to see you guys here today, and I am super excited because today we are chatting with my critique partner, Mea Smith, and she'll be on in just a minute, and I cannot wait to ask her some questions about her poetry collection that is coming out soon. So while we're waiting for some more people to join in, I am just going to tell you guys a little bit about the, oh, I see May, so I'm going to try to get you on here. May, hey Stacy. See, I don't know how to do this and actually have someone join me. Last week, Stacy just asked there. See, thank you, May. I've got to get that figured out. All right, so the summer reading challenge, though, is yay!
Hi, I'm here. I don't know how to put on the pretty filters and things like that, so you just get me today.
That's all good. That's all good. I had to try to figure out how to set my phone so that it's a beautiful sunny day, which is nice. I'm not complaining. But I have this big window right here, and I realized it was really glaring where I usually put this, and so I have to reconfigure. But anyway.
So I'm trying to set up where you can have a nice background and stuff, but it's on. I had a work thing that came up, so I'm taking my lunch hour to do this, and this is so much fun. This is like my thing, right?
Oh.
So I'm taking a lunch hour to do this, and I had an emergency meeting that came up, so I didn't have to get it all set up the way I wanted to.
Well, it all looks good.
Thanks. I wanted my little typewriter in the background. Oh, did you see how that is all?
I know, I love your typewriter. So she got the deal of the century on that thing, y'all. She found it at a thrift store. So I've told her, given her strict instructions, that if she finds a red one, she has to get it for me. I'll pay her back. Hello, are you still there? Uh-oh, got some connection issues. All right, so I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about the Summer Reading Challenge while we're waiting, and hopefully May will pop back in here. But the Summer Reading Challenge is really just a way for us to have some fun together, to get to know some new authors, to chat about books, to share books that we're enjoying reading, and let me get her back in here, and also a way to just have a challenge of reading a certain number of books in a year that all fall into different categories. And so I'm telling them a little bit about the Summer Reading Challenge.
Yes,
So it's just a lot of fun. But anyway, that's what it is. And there is a link. It's the very first, if you go to my bio in my link tree, it's the very first link. It gives you all the details about the challenge, all the legalese, I like to say. But basically, in a simple version, just come and chat either on Instagram or Facebook and pop some comments in, underneath the posts, ask questions, share what you're reading, and get to know our amazing featured authors like May and Stacy from last week. So yeah, that's what it is. So today I am just going to have a little chat with May, and the first thing is, will you just kind of tell people a little bit about you and about your upcoming poetry book?
Yeah, so my name is Mea Smith. It's short for Megan, and that's why it's May and not Mia. I'm looking for my headphones, so I can hear you better. So I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I'm not normally this scattered, or maybe I am these days. Maybe this is on, how life is just going to be from here on out. I'm not really sure. But
girl, this is just life. Right before I got on here, I was wrestling a syrup container out of my dog's mouth.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So that sounds fun. I like that.
Oh, yeah. So much fun. So that's real life, people.
Mm-hmm. It is. It so is. Okay. So my name is May, and it's sitting on top of a Tupperware box, and my Tupperware box is slipping. Okay, so if you wanted to know what real life is like, this is what real life is like. Okay.
We
So
need like a collage of pictures of behind the
I
scenes of
know.
lives so that people can see what it really looks like.
Is this like, oh my gosh, this is so crazy. I'm gonna hold it. It's gonna be fine.
You're too funny.
Look, guys, here I promise you, like there's my Tupperware. You see it? I'm trying to get it. It's not sexy at all. So,
Oh, gosh.
okay. So I'm May, and I am Joy's critique partner. Joy keeps me straight. She keeps all of the crazy at bay, and she manages my crazy too. So, and I'm really thankful for that. So, Joy and I co-host a podcast together called The QWERTY Writing Life, and we wrote a book together too underneath the QWERTY Writing Life branding. And it's called Spike. It's what? Oh, I see it right there. I see it on your thing. Yes, excellent. Good work. My Tupperware slipped again. And
This is us,
Stacy,
y'all.
you are so kind to join and to watch this craziness happen. I think I fixed it. Nope, it's still falling. Um, so our book together is called Finders Keepers, and it's how to find and keep your writing critique partner. And so since Joy and I are writing critique partners and we found each other and we're keeping each other, we thought we would be the perfect people to write that book. So that's the nonfiction book that we have. And so my next venture was a poetry book. And my poetry book is called Grief Like a River. And there's been a lot of things that I've gone through and everything. It's kind of a bit of my journey through grief and how I've come to a place of hope and a little bit of peace and a bit of redemption. And I did a lot of that alone. So Grief Like a River is kind of like my way to reach out to people and hopefully give them a little bit of companionship while they're going through their grief, or maybe if they're kind of coming out on the other side of it, then they can just be like, yeah, I feel that. And so sometimes that solidarity, sister kind of feeling is a good thing for us as we are getting toward a place of understanding with grief. So that's what that's about. I also write fiction too. And I do like the romantic stuff. So I write that in the women's fiction area. And yeah, I guess that's about me. I also have a full-time job. So I'm a director of admissions at a university. So that's a lot of fun. Every day's a little bit different. And I like that about it too. But also I hate that about that. So it keeps me on my toes, but also you can't really develop a great routine with that. So, there's pros and cons to a little bit of everything in life, right?
That's true. And the beauty is getting to find the pros and the cons and seeing both of them because
Exactly. Nothing is ever just con and nothing is ever just pro. And that's how you know the difference between the two is when you have both. So, yeah.
look at us going deep and early
I
on a
know.
Friday morning.
I
Ah,
know. It's
take that
10:15.
Friday morning.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's see. You've already told us a little bit about Grief Like a River,
Hmm.
and that is coming out soon, and I cannot wait, y'all. This thing has got to be on my
Yes.
shelf like now. I'm so ready.
Hmm.
Beautiful.
I'm pretty excited about it too. I'm not gonna lie.
All right, so what do you love most about being an author?
So something I love about being an author is there's a quote that I heard, and I think it was a Southern female author who said it, but it was something about the fact that she wrote in order to figure out what she thought. And I resonate with that so much because it's all kind of really chaotic and amorphous in my head, but when I write, it puts things down in some sort of order and it gives me like bullet points and I'm like when I write something and I'm like, yeah, that's how I feel. Like
There it is.
yeah, there it is. And that's a lot of how like Grief Like a River Part 2 was. There's a poem in Grief Like a River, and there's a part 1 and a part 2, and the part 1 is kind of like grief at the beginning, and then part 2, I didn't really know how I felt about grief until I wrote part 2. So that's kind of interesting. I knew that I was coming to some sort of emotional place that was a place of understanding, but I didn't know how to vocalize it or really tell it to myself until I wrote that poem. And so that's what I love about being an author, is it helps me understand who I am and what I think, and be able to articulate what I believe.
Yeah, I love that. And I just have to point out, so Stacy's had a couple of comments here. So you guys both write poetry, which is so much fun. We've all got to get together one of
Yes,
these
we
days.
do.
Yay, it would be so much fun. But
Beignets! Aren't you close to New Orleans?
yes,
We could get
yes.
beignets. Do you like beignets, Stacy? Give me a thumbs up if you like beignets.
Well, I don't know about Stacy. I can't speak for Stacy. I just get
I'm
really
waiting.
think about beignets. So
So,
Stacy is not originally from this area, and neither am
oh,
I. I mean, technically, like I'm not from here,
she gave
so
us a
we
heart.
transplant. Yay, it's a heart. Okay, we're gonna have beignets. It'll be great.
Yes.
But she also said in the comments, she also used to work at a university too, and she is joining us on a break from scoring essays. So
Yes.
I love this because this shows everybody a little picture of the real life of writers. Like
Hmm.
we all do a ton of crazy stuff, and it's not just sitting and getting to write. And I wish, but
Hmm.
there y'all
But
go.
it's also meeting wonderful people like Stacy, and we have so much in common too. So I'm very interested to have like a real life conversation with you, Stacy. I want to know what you did at a university, and how it went, what kind of university, and da, 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 da. So all of the things.
All the things over beignets. She's a
Everybody.
Midwesterner turned Southerner. I love that.
Hmm. Yeah. So I'm a bit multicultural as well. So I grew up in a multicultural home. My mom is half Japanese and my grandmother is full Japanese. And so I have a little bit of the Japanese culture as well as the Southern culture. And it's interesting how sometimes they mingle and mix, and they're kind of the same in some ways. But yes, so I'm not a Midwesterner, but there's a little bit of something in there too. See, look at all the things, Stacy. I knew we were going to be friends.
It's the best. It is the best. All right. So I have a question for you because
Hmm.
this summer, one of my big focuses has been to encourage the people following along with the challenge to write book reviews, because book reviews are just so huge, both for readers and for authors. So my question for you is, what do you appreciate most about book reviews? And you can answer this coming from the concept of a reader or a writer, either way.
Yes. Okay. So I have to put a timeout here. Stacy's husband is half Japanese. What in the world? Were
I
we
know. I was like
separate?
wanting to say it, but I was like, I don't know if she wants me to like say this on like live. So I'm so glad she said that because I was like, oh, you'll have to get together.
Oh my goodness. I cannot wait. I cannot wait. Okay. So what was the question?
Sorry. See, this
It's
is us.
about reviews. Okay. It was about reviews.
Yes. So what do you appreciate most about book reviews?
Mm.
So
Okay. I appreciate book reviews that review the book instead of the author.
mhm,
I appreciate book reviews that give both the things that they liked and the things that they felt needed improvement. So I like both of those.
mhm.
That's how I give critiques. That's how I give encouragement too, because there's, again, pros and cons. There's always a pro, there's always a con. I also like the excitement, like when you see the excitement of the reviewer in the words that they write. So, and you can like, I love exclamation points, I love emojis, I love to feel like I love to fangirl along with whoever is writing that review.
I love that. I've been seeing so many fantastic reviews lately, and
Hmm.
I love that. What you just said, you can see the excitement in a lot of these reviews that I've been seeing lately, and I love that because that
Hmm.
really does improve. So, do
Yes.
you have like a tip for writing book reviews? I mean, you said that you like to put
Hmm.
what you liked and what you didn't in there and review the
Hmm.
book, not the author.
I do. So I guess one of my tips would be for reviewers, and just off the top of my head, would be to recognize that even if the author is writing about a murderer, like they're not a murderer. The author's not a murderer, or you know, if there's something that's controversial that maybe contradicts something that you believe or something that you think is right or wrong, that it doesn't necessarily reflect what the author believes, and it might be that they are trying to maybe show a different perspective, or maybe try to understand a different perspective, or it might just be good story. So yeah, just if there's something that you don't necessarily like about it, it doesn't mean that that author lives their life personally in that vulgar way. So,
That's a really good thing to point out because I think a lot of times we think so realistic when it comes to fiction or whatever we're reading.
yeah, and I think too, with the accessibility that you have to authors now as well, that it's that line is really blurred. You used to be able to, separate that really well, and have that distance between the author and the book. And you can love the book and you can like the author, or maybe you just know the author's name, you didn't even know what they looked like or anything like that. Well, now you can have lives with authors. Hello, friends.
Exactly.
You can have significant contact with an author these days, and I think that sometimes the line between fiction and reality does kind of get blurred sometimes. But if we're aware of it, though, makes it all better.
Exactly. Great point. So I am, because you love to read, of
Mm-hmm.
course, as most writers do. So what has been your favorite book that you've read so far this year?
This year, I've read almost 20 books, which is not necessarily a lot for some people, but it is for me because of all of the things that I'm juggling. But I think that my favorite book that I read this year is going to be Alexandra Bracken's book called Lore. And it was just this beautiful mix of mythology and contemporary, and it had like this kind of Hunger Games feel to it, where there's like one as like 1 week maybe. There's a period of time in the year, and it's only every 7 years or something like that, where you are able to kill a god and obtain their power. and,
That's
so
intense.
it's pretty intense. It is pretty intense. But she comes from a hunter clan, and that's assimilated into contemporary culture and everything. So these are people who are hidden inside of the world, and I think it takes place in New York City, if I recall correctly. It's been a little while since I've read it, but so everybody's training for 6 years or 6.5 years for this seventh year, this moment where they're able to obtain a godlike power for their group of people. And Lore doesn't want in that. It's kind of tore apart her immediate family group, and so she tries to get out, and she can't stay out for reasons, and it's so good.
It looks amazing. Like it's been on my list for a while. I have got to read this book out because I
Yeah.
do. I love mythology and I love the fact that she's taken and kind of mashed that up with contemporary or whatever. So,
Yeah,
and the
and
cover
you'll
is gorgeous.
it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. It is not it is YA, but it's not YA. Stacy, it's kind of, I would probably label it new adult age range, but not what the stereotype of new adult has become. But as far as age range, it's older than YA, but not quite adult yet. Does that make sense? I've made it very confusing. I'm so sorry.
That makes perfect sense to me. And that's something that I've heard over and over is people really do love that age range represented in literature, and but not necessarily what, as you said, it's kind of become known as, you know. So I think that there is a huge market for that, and so I hope that we'll see more of that. And I
Yeah, and
think that
I'm hoping that there'll be some good excuse me, subgenres that come out for new adult, new adult books.
yeah,
So yeah, so maybe there is like a certain type of romance subgenre, and then we've got some other things coming underneath it. But I look forward to the future and see how that's going to play out.
yeah, that's cool. So I'm actually going to jump ahead because this is something that Stacy asked on a comment earlier today, and I
Oh,
feel like it plays in really well with this.
great.
She asked, "What do you think the future of poetry will look like?" And this is
Mm,
for readers, for poets themselves, for publishers. Do you have any thoughts on that? Kind of
I
like we're talking about the new adult thing.
Yes, I do. And so if you don't follow if you don't follow Orna Ross and the self-publishing podcast, I think, is that the right one? Oops, I'm sorry, I've touched
Yeah, there's
something
that
else.
publishers
Mhm.
podcast she does with Ally. Now, does she
Yeah,
do one on her own as well?
she doesn't. It's once a month. They focus on poetry. So, Stacy, if you're interested, I think it's a really good place to start. But interesting thing that's happening is that poetry is a little bit behind where fiction, ebooks, self-publishing is right now. And so there's a lot of space in the indie publishing world for poetry right now. So it's not quite as crowded as, say, fiction, romance, things like that. And I'm feeling like people are going to be getting back into poetry a lot more. The ground has been laid, the foundation has been set by Instagram poets like Rupi Kaur and so forth. And also, poetry is near and dear to Orna Ross's heart, and she has a really wide platform with the Ally organization for independent authors. And so, all of the things that people have found out about fiction publishing or self publishing, they're learning new things for poetry right now. And I think that we're on the cusp. So if you've got a poetry book in you, Stacey, or a chapbook or something like that, and if you are interested in self publishing, then I think that we're going to see some big things there. I also think that the Instagram poets and everything has kind of revived poetry for traditional publishing as well. So if you are interested in publishing traditionally, I think that there are some good places that you could go for that too. There's a totally different marketing tactic for both of those, so I wouldn't say that you could do the same things for self-published poetry versus traditional poetry and trying to query an agent and all of that stuff. So different methods there, but I do think that there is some pretty good, like, low-hanging fruit that you could grab.
That's great. I love that. I love this like industry talk as well because it's so much fun. And Orna Ross and Joanna Penn are just such a wealth of information when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to the publishing industry at large, but especially for self-published authors. They just have been so good at calling what's about to happen
Mm-hmm.
in the industry for fiction, nonfiction, poetry, all of the above. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, coffee and beignets and chat more. I agree. So, May, so what are you going to be working on next? Because now you're still in the process of getting this poetry book out into the world, but what is your plan next?
Yes. So for Finders Keepers, I had a publisher. It was Logos and Mythos Press,
I
and
hear they're
so
fabulous.
they're wonderful. So I did not have to do all of the nitty gritty necessarily for publishing. So now, once I chose to publish the poetry book as self-publish it or as an independent author, I am learning a lot about publishing, and I'm also learning a lot about all of the little tiny details that take up time and effort, and you can't just pop it on the Amazon, right? So you got to go through all of these little doodads, and those little doodads are taking a little bit more time. So I hesitate to put a release date until all of those little doodads are in place. So that's why I'm not putting a release date out there, and just yet. But as soon as those doodads are in place and things are firm, I will share with everybody a wonderful release date. I can tell you this. This is news. I have finalized files. I have finalized print files. I have finalized covers, and I have finalized ebooks. So it's in my hands. It's just the doodads. It's just the doodads.
Yes. Those dang doodads.
I know it,
How
right?
southern can we get right now?
Yeah, doodads and whatnots. So right, what's happening next? I guess, like in the present tense, super future, is the metadata and getting the poetry book on there. I have a few other things too that I'm doing, and as far as learning, so I have some learning things that I'm going to partake in. after the poetry book is released. And then after the learning things, I'm going to be writing a fiction series that I'm so excited about. I've been excited about it for a really long time, but I did not have the craft knowledge that I needed in order to write it and to write it well. And I think that I'm ready to try it again. And I didn't want to do a series at first. At first, I was like, oh, it's just this one book. It's only this one book. And then I was like, oh, but I have this other thought about this other character. And maybe it's just two books. Maybe it's just two. And then I got another thought about it. And I was like, okay, it's a trilogy. I can do a trilogy. And now I have like this whole spread.
It happens to the best of us. That's all I can say.
I have this whole spread of ideas for a complete series and like maybe a spin-off of the trilogy. I don't know. I don't know. There was a fourth character, and I was like, "We're gonna do this fourth. It's just gonna be like a quadret. Is that a word?"
Sure, it is now.
So, but then I was like, "There's a spin-off series that I really want to do, and I have notes for it. I have some dialogue. I have some character development already done, but we'll see. I really want to get into the novel writing after this poetry book. I've had fun with poetry. The poetry was years in culmination. Like it's all of these things put together. It had multiple iterations. We did a podcast on that, so I don't know if we can put that somewhere, so I don't have to like rehash it here. but there are multiple iterations. Stacey, if you want to know more about it, we can chat. But it's evolved from something that I thought was kind of like this, not really revenge thing, but it was like, I'm going to speak my mind. It changed from that into something that was more, when you realize that it's not about anger and revenge and all that. It's like, oh, this is grief. Like, oh. So when I got to a place of understanding, I think that's when the poetry book was able to come to fruition as well. There was more learning I had to do before I could say that this is what it needed to be. And I'm glad, I'm so glad that I waited and then that I let it evolve and I let along with me and in the process. So there was reasons. Oh, the reason I was talking about that was because now I'm ready to go do something lighter and a little bit more fun. And I think that the novels are going to be so much fun. And it's a multimedia thing, so I'm writing music and lyrics. And along with these, I'm creating a town, I'm creating restaurants. It's so much fun.
It's the best. I love it. I love it. I love all of your stuff. I'm so excited for all of it. It's going to be great.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited about your things too. You've got some great stuff coming up.
Thank you. I know. Almost done with my collection, and then I'm going to hop into the fantasy world. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
See, aren't you ready? Like, aren't you ready for that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the interesting thing. Like, as an author, like putting stuff out into the world, like the thing is you want readers. You want,
Hmm.
because we don't write just to keep it in a bubble. We talked about this last week. The great thing, that's my cat. Hey, Mickey. Anyway,
He was like slowly
I
rising.
know. I was like, this looks really weird, so I probably should say something. Please don't knock this over, precious. Anyway, um, but yeah, I mean that's the thing. As an author, you don't want to keep what you've written hidden away. The point is for people to read it, but um, as we go through the process and as we put things out into the world, we're so excited to move on to the next thing. And it's not that we
Hmm.
don't love the thing that we've already put out there. It's just there's so much more bubbling
Hmm.
up that we can't wait to get to. So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah. I am happy that I'm starting with, as far as an individual author piece, that I'm starting with something super near and dear to my heart. And I'm glad that we started with the nonfiction piece too. That was something that was near and dear to us and a resource that we couldn't find anywhere. So that was a really good choice too. Um, but I am thinking that because I feel like everything else will just be icing after this. I feel like this is cake, you know? This is passion. This is a passion project. It's a heart project. It's something that has meaning more than money. Of course, I'd love to make some money on it, but it has meaning beyond that. And I included a reader's guide in there too. So there's like some questions at the end, and some of those questions are kind of not all of them, but some of them are kind of to help the reader think about their grief and how they are processing and how it differs, and maybe it's some of the same, and what are some things that you need to think about a little bit. Some of it is also very like structure centered, like does this work, does this, like you're reading the book as an author, because I know like I feel like there's going to be some poets out there who are like, I don't know about this. Because it's not super traditional, because it does include illustrations, and sometimes the illustrations like bring that emotion of the poem to a different place. So it's a part of the poem in a way. But I don't know how that's going to resonate with some people. I hope it resonates really well, but we shall see.
I definitely think it will. And
Yeah.
I mean, you can tell that this is a passion project, as you said. Like that comes through in the writing and the poetry. It really does. So
Yeah.
I'm just so excited for it to be out there.
Yeah. So I'm
I
glad I'm
have,
started there.
so I have a question, and I don't want to put you on the spot because I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if you have your poetry with you or if you would even want to do this, but
Mm-hmm.
would you want to read something from there if you have it with you?
I do, but it's on my computer. Can I grab it?
Okay,
Would
yeah,
that be
sure.
okay? Because I'm
Yeah,
on
that'd
the
be
phone here. Absolutely.
I can
Yeah,
totally
give me
vamp
just a second. All
for us.
right. No
Okay,
problem. Talk amongst yourselves.
yes. So, let's see. What can I talk about? May is amazing, and I could just be saying anything because she can't hear me right now. Huh. Anyway, she really is amazing though. So the summer reading challenge. Be sure to check out. I have in the highlights of my stories. There's a little thing just for 2021 summer reading challenge. Click on there, and it shows you the categories for the book that we're reading this summer. I've got 6 categories and 2 bonus categories. And if you read all 8 of those books before we're done with the challenge, then I've got more. So that's that. And you can just find that in the little highlights. And it also kind of talks a little bit about the process and how we do points every week. And so this week, for example, is the person with the most points. And you get points just simply by commenting and interacting with posts and things like that. The person with the most points from this week will get an autographed copy of Grief Like a River by May when it is out. So you'll be one of the first people to get a copy, which is super exciting. So I was just telling them about the prize for this week's weekly winner and how exciting that
Yes. I'm excited about that too.
is.
This is such a great kickoff. It's like revived all of the enthusiasm that I've lost in the metadata.
I know. Let me just tell y'all. So all those little things that you see when you're looking at books online, all the little descriptions, all the keywords, even the ways that you stumble upon a book, okay, those things that you don't even see that are hidden in the algorithms, that's what she's working on right now. And it is so tedious. It really is. Yeah.
It's the business part of it, and if you're going to choose to be an independent author, then you're choosing to be a business person as well. Like there's no way to separate the two. Um, unless you're just doing it purely for fun, and it's not like your main source of income, or even a portion of your income, if you're just putting it out there to put it out there. But it's not all bad though. That's creative as well, because you're trying to figure out the best way to put your piece out there. And what's good about it too is that you're the one who's choosing it. So if you don't get those choices if you choose to go a different route, if you choose to publish a different way. You don't get the cover choices. You don't get the metadata choices. You don't get to decide if you want to go wide or if you want to go, exclusive. You don't get those choices. And if that's something that you want, then maybe looking into independent publishing, you know, as an independent author would be good. So, Joy, do you have a favorite?
You always ask me this, and you know which one is my favorite, and I know it's long.
Is it the
Um,
Badge of Honor?
no, the
Oh, Bird Looking Adventure.
Together with Blake Adventure. That
That's
is
really long.
no, it is. See, I'm sorry.
No, I'm glad you love it, because that's the one that's taken the long. That's the one that's had the most evolution, and it's got a lot of emotion. And I don't know if I can read it without crying. So let's pick a new one.
Yeah, pick another one. choose one that's a little bit shorter that you enjoy reading. I know you read the one about your grandmother on our podcast, which was beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Let me see. That one's so short.
Mhm.
Okay. Do we want a cry one or do we want? Oh, here's one I love. Okay,
Okay,
I got one. Never mind. I'm not asking you any more questions. I picked.
good. I saw the
So,
spark. The spark. You're the
yes.
spark.
So this one is called A Different Tone. Do you know which one? Okay. So this one's called A Different Tone. This is in the surfacing section. So the book is split up into different of my stages, not like the psychological stages of grief or anything like that, but how I've defined it under this metaphor of grief like a river. So, and actually that's a simile, isn't it? So analogy, that analogy of grief like a river.
Actually, simply because, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So I said metaphor first, and this is live, so I can't edit it. So I just have to go back and fix it. So,
It's all good.
okay, thanks. Hey, this is my first live, y'all. I don't know if you know, but how am I doing? Okay, sorry. Okay, here we go. This one's called A Different Tone. Look, she told her brother. The lace of her dress itched her knees, and she was tired of hearing everyone cry. I see him up there. Her finger bumped the window pane. Her brother was older, but not too much older, so he hoped as he searched. There is his mustache and his long hair, and there is the wheel of his chair. Her brother's gaze came down from the clouds then. He knew she was imagining again, and he told her so. That's dumb. He crossed his arms over his clip-on tie. He's in heaven now. He can walk. She didn't know what to say to him when the sadness crept back in. She looked back at the wheel in the sky and whispered, he can walk now, to hear it in a different tone. And her spirit lifted again.
That's so precious because I can just see these two kids. I can see this happening, and I love the way you painted that.
Thanks. It's a memory that stuck out to me. When I was about 9 or 10, my uncle passed away, and he was a quadriplegic. And I remember being in the living room and like looking up at the sky and seeing like making images out of the clouds. And I remember my brother having a similar reaction to that. He wasn't trying to be mean, It was just how he was processing his grief. And it's a very clear memory, and I don't have a lot of clear memories. So I wanted to honor that. So
Thank you for sharing that with us.
no problem. Thanks for asking. I didn't even.
The only thing better than reading your poetry is hearing you read it. Like, I love to hear you read it. Of course, I know you so well that when I read your stuff, I hear you. Like, your voice it's like an audiobook. It's like a built-in audiobook. It's great.
Yeah. Hey, guess who's going to read the audiobook of Grief Like a River?
Yay!
This girl.
I was hoping you were going to say that. I was like, I don't know who else it would be.
Yeah, I feel like it's like one of the things that for this particular project I want to do. I want to read the audiobook. So it's my grief. I get to read it.
Exactly. Oh my goodness. Oh, all the things. All right. So we're going to wrap up because I know we've gone for a little while now. But before we do, just tell people where they can find you. Of course, on Instagram, y'all can just follow her profile. But where are some other good places for people to hang out with you?
Yeah, so I am at Mea Smith Writes on Instagram. I am also on Facebook, I am May the Writer, MEA, the Writer. I also run StorySwell. So that is a community of storytellers and story lovers. And so storyswell.net is that website. And then also StorySwell Jelly, Jelly, because the mascot is a jellyfish. You can get that.
Adorable.
He's so cute. So on Instagram and on Facebook there too.
Yay.
Yes, I have a
Thank
newsletter.
you.
Oh, by the way,
Oh, yay.
The Story Swell newsletter is also my author newsletter. So we talk about story, and sometimes it's story structure, and sometimes it's story recommendations and author updates and all that stuff. So
And I love
that's my
that.
most fun.
Yeah, in there you talk about not just stories in this book, but like you talk about movies and music and all
Hmm.
sorts of things. And I love that. You bring
Yeah.
all of that together.
Hmm. Yeah, I do. And that's something that was kind of a passion project too. So yeah, not just books. There's all stories in all different ways. We can ingest them in all different ways.
Love it.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you so much for being with me today and for
No,
chatting and
I'm so
sharing some
glad.
of your book.
I'm so glad you asked. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. So you guys just keep following along. We've got posts going up all week. Go back and check some of the posts we've already had earlier in the week. You'll get to know a little bit more about May and about her upcoming book, and just join in the fun.
That's
So
it.
you guys have a great weekend.
All right. Talk to y'all later.
Bye.
Bye.
I have to figure out how to stop it. Sorry.
No, you're good. I was doing my pose face.
Oh, there you go.
There
All
you go.
right. Bye, everyone.